Have you ever wondered why, even as a little kid, people started talking to you about death? Maybe it wasn't direct words, but in the serious tone of adults, in scared looks when funerals were mentioned, or even in stories to teach you how to behave. Why so much fear of something that's totally universal? Death is one of those topics that's been with us since birth, subtle, like an invisible presence, but crucial in shaping our values. Hit subscribe and drop a like to get more stories like this. Just imagine for a second. What would you be like if you weren't afraid to die? How would you choose to live? Who, after all, would have power over your decisions and dreams? The fear of death, more than an instinct, was carefully cultivated, socially reinforced, religiously institutionalized. I'm not talking about pure protection here, but about shaping. From very early on, we learned that we shouldn't just avoid the physical pain of the end, but fear the absolute unknown, as if that unknown carried the weight of all possible punishments and anguishes. Take a break. Look inside. How many of your choices, career, relationships, even spirituality, were, on some level, shaped by narratives that use death and the afterlife as a bargaining chip? Do this and you'll be saved. Don't do that, or you'll be punished. Fear disguises itself as zeal, but it works as a tool for domestication. It keeps us on predictable, contained paths, often oblivious to the infinite potential of our spiritual essence. Is this realization uncomfortable? Maybe, but that's exactly where the invitation to freedom lies. When we recognize that much of what we think we feel isn't ours, but a legacy of generations, we can, for the first time, question the limits of our own consciousness. Is the true nature of death really terrible, or just unknown? What lies beyond disciplined fear? Take a deep breath. No transformation starts without a call to courage. Now, if this topic resonates with you, if you feel you need to deeply understand how death, when manipulated, has transformed our ways of living, stick with me. And while you're at it, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below, sharing how the fear of death impacts your life or your view of the world. Your reflection is our fuel. Every comment is an essential piece for this collective journey. Let's break this silence together. But what if I told you that some people managed to look the unknown in the eye and come back to tell what they saw? Edgar Cayce was that rare kind of human being. Born in 1877, self-taught, humble, he walked the paths of spirituality in an absolutely revolutionary way. Called the Sleeping Prophet, Cayce became world-renowned for his trance readings. Thousands of accounts detailing everything from impossible cures to vivid descriptions of the afterlife passed on by him while in an altered state of consciousness. Have you ever imagined someone capable of accessing information that seemed inaccessible to the common mind, and more than that, bringing answers to questions that haunted the restless souls of his time? Cayce didn't just reaffirm dogmas, he expanded the conversation, challenging the monopoly of traditional religions over what happens after the last breath. For Cayce, death was just a change of state, an awakening to a broader reality. What's even more fascinating is that his visions weren't just for individual comfort. They had the effect of a stone dropped in a calm lake. They reverberated in the collective, broke paradigms, and empowered people to seek the meaning of existence for themselves. Cayce didn't promise heaven or hell in exchange for superficial behaviors. He spoke of profound responsibility for one's intentions, emotions, and actions. For him, the soul was eternal, a tireless traveler through multiple realities, always seeking to evolve, learn, remember. Have you ever felt, at some point in your life, that strange nostalgia for someone you never were, or the intuition that your path here didn't begin at birth and doesn't end with death? Cayce said, listen to that. The innermost meaning of your life pulsates in these silent questions. With each reading, Cayce dismantled the trap of fear and offered new maps so that each human being could at last navigate the unknown without feeling adrift. If death isn't the end, what door does it open, and who do you become when you cross it? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you're standing before an old enigmatic door. On the other side, nothing has been promised. Neither punishment nor glory, just an almost sacred silence. What do you feel? Fear, curiosity, or a strange peace? The point is, death, as it was presented to us, is the definitive end. But what if it was all just a majestic illusion, created to contain our search for mysteries and maintain order? The narrative of total annihilation serves many interests. It prevents questions, controls impulses, inhibits courage. However, the experience of those who have had near-death experiences, psychic explorations, or ancestral teachings points in another direction. Death can be the most extraordinary moment of consciousness expansion. Edgar Cayce maintained that when we die, we simply change clothes, but our essence, full of learnings, emotions, and desires, crosses that door unchanged, ready for new landscapes. Allow yourself to feel this. The end, in fact, is the beginning of a new cycle, whether on a different plane or in a new body with new challenges. Development doesn't stop, it just transforms. Like in a big school, the soul advances, revisits old questions from new angles, finds old friends, and above all, rediscovers itself. How many times in the face of a great loss did you realize that what you felt wasn't just pain, but also an invitation to renewal? Death unmasks illusions of separation. It reminds us that everything alive is connected. And the return, whether here, to another plane, to other realities, is just learning, never punishment. Therefore, those who profit from perpetuating the idea of absolute termination are those who benefit from your conformity, from the fear that paralyzes. Now think of all the times you were afraid to take risks, to love deeply, to forgive because of the feeling of limited and irreversible time. What would your life be like if you embraced the idea of continuity, of endless cycles of evolution and rebirth? The serenity with which you view the end radically transforms the courage with which you live the now. Stop and observe society. How many rules, how many laws, how many shoulds are based on narratives about the afterlife? We have, historically, built entire political and religious systems centered on the administration of fear. Heaven was a reward for the obedient, hell the torment of the rebels. The result of this model is a society shaped not by authentic intention, but by the consequence of rules, where the fear of punishment is worth more than the genuine desire to do good. These systems didn't arise by chance. They use our most intimate uncertainties to control collective behaviors. In the social unconscious, the fear of death is the warp that sustains the fabric of hierarchies, conformity, resignation. Post-life punishment is sold as an antidote to dangerous impulses, while the promise of salvation often conditions the pursuit of happiness on the denial of one's own nature. In Edgar Cayce's words, no karma is eternal, no hell is perpetual. What truly matters are intentions, the growth of the being. When morality is lived out of obligation or out of fear of the unknown, it loses its value. Only ethics that arise from consciousness, those that flourish because they feel we are all part of a single web, are authentic and transforming. Every time we accept fear-based narratives, we give up our free will and consequently our spiritual potential. The fear of death is an invisible whip, always ready to mold us to another's desire. Where there is fear, there are conditions. Where there is love, there is freedom. Reflect. Do you live to earn rewards or to avoid punishments? Have you heard more about sins than about possibilities? Does your authenticity fit within these perfect molds created by institutions? Fear is useful to those who want obedience, but courage transforms. If this content is hitting home for you, write in the comments how you feel about facing the topic of death from this new perspective. Like and subscribe, because together we're creating a space of freedom where consciousness, not fear, is the guide. Imagine your soul as an ancient traveler, carrying not only the experience of this life, but countless others that have shaped every nuance of your being. It's no mere coincidence that, in our moments of silence and introspection, memories arise that don't belong to this existence. Sometimes a powerful feeling of having already lived, loved, erred, and started over in another time, under another sky. This is the true journey of the soul, an eternal voyage of evolution and recollection. Edgar Cayce described the soul as an immortal being that, through various incarnations, accumulates learnings and experiences to expand its consciousness. The memory of these past lives isn't lost. It's stored in the core of our deepest being, ready to be retrieved when we're ready. This remembrance doesn't serve to enslave, but to liberate, because it brings with it the possibility of understanding repetitive patterns, healing old wounds, and choosing paths more aligned with the mission corresponding to that moment. Think about how this perspective radically changes the way we face mistakes, failures, or pain. They go from unchangeable punishments to temporary lessons and precious opportunities. The soul never loses its value or dignity, even when facing what we call chaos. Every challenge is like an obstacle on a road that, if overcome, leads to a higher level of wisdom. But there's something even more fascinating. The soul doesn't undertake this journey in isolation. We are connected to an infinite web of consciousnesses, encountering soul companions along the way, those who repeatedly appear in our lives to challenge, support, or mirror us. These relationships are true laboratories of growth, revealing internal aspects that need to be understood. Have you ever felt an inexplicable affinity for someone to the point of believing that the bond transcends the logic of time and space? This is an invitation to recognize that your soul is intertwined with others, and these connections are part of the subtle plan of common evolution. And how does this soul memory serve a practical purpose? It calls us to awaken our consciousness to the learnings that insist on repeating themselves, and thus rescue our true essence. We are not prisoners of circumstances. We are artisans of our eternal destiny. Our essence is light, and the journey is about unveiling that light, layer by layer. So as you reflect on your life now, ask yourself, what silent memories does my soul wish to remember? What old patterns am I ready to transmute? The answer may surprise you, but it always leads to deep love for yourself and for the process of existence. We've reached an intriguing point. What awaits us after death isn't a fixed, unchangeable, or uniform reality for everyone. Quite the opposite, it's an intimate reflection of what we cultivate within ourselves during this life. Edgar Cayce explained in a profound way that the other side functions almost like a mirror. What we see and experience post-death is, above all, a manifestation of the intentions, emotions, and thoughts that dominate our heart while alive. Imagine if, at the time of transition, we're not taken to an external place, but immersed in a panorama built by the very beliefs and feelings we've nurtured. Love, fear, resentment, forgiveness, anger, all of this translates into internal scenarios that we can feel and explore. It's not about punishment, but a natural process of deep reflection, where we confront the truth about who we are. This vision completely dismantles the idea of hell as an external entity that punishes us. The suffering perceived after death comes from confronting our unresolved inner shadows. On the other hand, what we feel as peace and joy is the direct result of the positive bonds and energies we've cultivated. It's the spirit itself finding itself in a harmonious or dissonant frequency. And what does this mean for our life here and now? It means that every thought, every intention, every action echoes beyond what we can imagine. We are not victims of fate. We are the authors of our continuous spiritual reality. This perspective sheds light on the importance of self-knowledge and the conscious cultivation of love, because only true love creates spaces that welcome and uplift. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, how could my emotions and beliefs be affecting not just my present, but my entire existence beyond physical life? This questioning awakens responsibility and at the same time hope. After all, even when we err, we are invited to choose paths of healing, which reverberate beyond life. Allow yourself to imagine that, at any moment, you are cultivating the inner garden that will flourish in the afterlife. This is Edgar Cayce's liberating message. We are connected to an eternal cycle, and the quality of that cycle depends on the quality of love and light we nurture within ourselves at every instant. Have you ever heard of the interlife state? It's a term that, while seeming distant from our everyday experience, is intrinsically linked to the soul's continuity between one life and another. According to Edgar Cayce, when someone leaves the physical body, the soul doesn't immediately dive into a new world without preparation. Before that, there's a special state, a space for healing, reflection, and planning. Imagine for a moment that life isn't a straight line, but a cycle. After passing, the soul enters a dimension where it can recover from accumulated physical and emotional wounds, as well as look at the recently ended existence with more compassionate and wise eyes. This moment is a true spiritual retreat, where the being can integrate experiences, release old pains, and better understand the lessons learned. It's a unique opportunity for evaluation, not to judge yourself, but to recognize yourself with love. Here, the soul finds spiritual mentors, guides who help understand the paths taken and define the focus for the next cycle. They don't dictate orders, but support the alliance with free will, respecting the autonomy of each being. Have you ever felt the need to pause, to distance yourself from the pressures of daily life, to reflect on your true goals? The interlife state functions like this cosmic pause between earthly periods, a moment to self-calibrate before returning to corporeal experience. It's not about punishment nor about forgetting, but about conscious planning. The soul chooses from healing, which challenges it wants to face, which gifts it wants to develop, which relationships it intends to cultivate. This choice is made from an expanded perspective, which sees life as a continuous process of growth and not as successive, lucky attempts. If this idea resonates with you, start to perceive the pauses in your way of living as opportunities to align purpose and action. Only then will the soul be able to follow its course no longer by impulse, fear, or habit, but by the clarity of consciousness. Imagine for a moment that life is a school without walls, a vast field of experiences where the soul returns many times, not to pay eternal debts, but to learn, grow, and expand its consciousness. This is the profound message Edgar Cayce left us about reincarnation. It's not a punishment, but an opportunity. Often, we confuse the idea of multiple lives with a cycle of endless punishments, of mistakes that must be corrected by force. But what if reincarnation is, in fact, a gentle and constant invitation to self-directed evolution? Think of the soul as an artist. Each life is a blank canvas, where the artist chooses colors and shapes to express their maturity and vision at that moment. The painting won't always be perfect. There will be mistakes, smudges, shadows, but all of this contributes to the final work that will never be incomplete, because evolution is infinite. This revolutionary concept breaks with the paradigm of original sin or perpetual guilt. Nothing in the spiritual process is predetermined or set in stone. Free will is the supreme tool each soul possesses to choose paths, learn from consequences, reflect, and decide new directions. No matter how many times you failed in the past, what matters is the quality of consciousness with which you face the present. Imagine being able to observe yourself from afar, seeing all your lives not as a chain of failures, but as a dynamic, flexible journey, guided by the constancy of love and learning. This brings profound relief, as it frees us from the weight of external and internal judgment, showing that every experience is a step on the ladder of a greater transformation. Cayce also reminds us that reincarnation isn't a random repetition. Before returning, the soul plans, in its interlife state, delays, encounters, and lessons, with the aim of facing challenges that promote expansion. Thus, a bond that was difficult in one life can be revisited for healing and understanding at another time. What choices are you making today that can reverberate in future journeys? Are you living with consciousness, or just letting life guide your steps without a clear direction? Evolution is an invitation to awaken to responsibility for every action, every feeling, every thought. Do you sometimes feel like there's a silent calling inside you, as if something greater is whispering, urging you to leave behind masks, imposed patterns, and live according to a deeper truth? This calling isn't just intuition, it's the soul's recognition wanting to awaken to its true mission. Contemporary life, with its rush and distractions, often pulls us away from our inner voice. We're pushed to act according to external expectations, to flee discomfort, to avoid risks. But Edgar Cayce reminds us that alignment with the soul's purpose requires presence, that ability to fully inhabit the here and now, with courage to look within and embrace our essence. Authenticity is born from meeting the true self, not the self shaped by circumstances, but the self that knows its spiritual roots, that understands its lessons, and that chooses, even in the face of uncertainties, to be true to its own light. Being present is living deeply, feeling the pulse of existence with intentionality and love. Have you ever experienced that moment when, despite the chaos or fear, you feel you're exactly where you should be? This feeling is the soul speaking, offering a glimpse of the sacred space that is always within us, waiting to be accessed. By awakening to this presence, you gain not only clarity, but also strength. The strength to say no to what doesn't resonate, to forgive without resentment, to create a life aligned with values that are true to you, not imposed. Recognizing your calling is accepting the mission to live consciously, as a protagonist and not a spectator. Every choice made from this authenticity resonates beyond physical life and affects the soul's entire journey. We've reached the end of this journey of discoveries, but also the beginning of the most powerful invitation, to live with consciousness and courage, honoring the immortality of the soul and its eternal capacity for evolution. We're not here by chance, and death, far from being an enemy to fear, is a passage, a chance for a new beginning, for expansion, and for rediscovering oneself. Today you are called to deconstruct stories that were imposed on you, to free your mind from controlling fear, to recognize eternity vibrating within your being. The spirituality proposed by Edgar Cayce reveals to us that we are more than this body, more than this life. We are travelers of an endless story, with the strength of free will to choose the path of light. Now it's up to you to answer. How do you want to live your existence on this planet? With fear or with love? With resignation or with courage? With a dormant or awakened soul? May every breath be a reminder of the power within you to create a more fulfilling, more authentic reality, more aligned with your eternal purpose. If this video touched you, I invite you to continue this exchange. Comment on what you discovered today, share your doubts and reflections. Like to strengthen this network of consciousness and subscribe to follow new journeys of self-knowledge and spirituality. Together, we can transform not only our view of death, but the way we live our lives, fully, with the certainty that we are eternal souls walking towards the light. The time is now. Make this life a work of love, learning, and presence. Your true self already knows the way, just listen to it.